here so we can get going. There we go. How is everybody?
Hey, how are you doing?
Post. Okay, I just need to, yeah. Alrighty, can you all hear me? Can everybody hear me? No. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Now I can hear you. Awesome.
Yes. We're on mute till you need us.
Yeah.
I'm trying to type in here, turn in a corner. Awesome. Alrighty. Just making sure that we're good to go, guys. There we go. Let's see. Alrighty. Are you all able to see me?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I can hear you now.
Keisha.
Yeah.
We're all on mute until you need us, so that's why you can't hear us. But can you see us?
I can't see you. There we go. I can see you now. Yay. Okay, we're just waiting on a couple more people.
I learned a cool shortcut that you can press your space bar to temporarily unmute, by the way.
I think that's what I've been doing. And then we just need to go live. Okay, so I am going to ask for a little bit of help. This worked just a moment ago, and so now it's doing something different. So now we're hitting live, and it's not going live. Let's see. Are we recording? Yes. Okay, so we are recording, which is good in case we have to post this later, but our intent is to actually be live on Facebook. Okay, is everybody? Yeah, we're just waiting on one more. Okay, she may be able to pop on and pop off, but yeah. Okay, so all right, everyone. I wanted to go ahead and just kind of, give everybody a chance to get here and get in. I think our last person is here. Is this Representative Sharon Beasley Teague? Can you hear me? Let me unmute everybody. Is this Representative Sharon Beasley Teague?
No, this is Heather Harflow. I had to jump on through telephone.
Okay, all right, no problem. Yeah, so we are still waiting on one more. We're waiting on Georgia State Representative to get on. Thank you guys so much for your patience. And what I did wanted to say while we're waiting on our system to come back up and get going here is that our intention is to be on Facebook Live today, like to be on there. At the moment, it is not going live, but we are recording. So if we do need to post it on there later, we'll be able to do that. But that's what we're doing right now. I think we have one more coming in. I think this is who we're waiting on here. All righty, hello. Let's see, make sure she's unmuted. I want to make sure everybody's unmuted.
Everybody, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. All righty, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Representative Sharon, just wanted to say thank you and welcome. I did want to let you know as well that at the moment we're having some technical difficulties with getting onto Facebook and that live stream happening. So we are recording in case we do need to post it later.
Okay.
And just wanted to let you know that as well. Again, just welcome everybody for being a part of this and for just being here to be able to share your perspectives on recent happenings in the last few months. I do want to just open up by, introducing myself and then having everyone to just go ahead and introduce themselves. And then we can kind of start from there. I'm Keisha. I am the cultural ambassador for Life Society. We are a Life advocacy group, and that just means that we believe in well lifestyle medicine practices. We believe in coaching. We believe in well life and all aspects of it, and we do advocate for all aspects of a well life. So that's cognitive, that's physical, that's spiritual. We advocate for all aspects of that. And so again, thank you. And so I will go ahead and just kind of go along the lines here and just give you a shout out, and then you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we can get started. Dr. BT3, you can go first.
Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Moore the third. I am the senior visionary of Empowerment Center here in Indianapolis. I also double as Keisha's pastor, Prophet Keisha's pastor. So thank you for having us on this afternoon. It's going to be good. I'm excited.
Thank you. Go ahead, Janae.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janae Boletza. I am the COO of Indiana Parenting Institute. I'm here in Gary, Indiana. And we do parenting education, we do family management, we help our families connect to those resources and to effectively nurture their kids into becoming wonderful, productive, responsible adults. So the other thing I also do is I serve on the State of Indiana Governor's Workforce Cabinet, which is the state's workforce board, coming up with the policies and procedures around education and workforce development. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Keisha.
Thank you. Dylan, you're next.
Hi, my name is Dylan Hostetter. I'm a realtor and I guess you'd say a citizen here in Indianapolis. I grew up on the Near East Side of downtown, and after living in California for 13 years, came back and have seen a lot of the effects of gentrification happening in my neighborhood. And when Keisha asked me to get in this conversation, I thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of hear and listen to what other people are doing and talking about these issues that are really important to me and my family.
Thanks for joining us, Dylan. Daryl?
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Roberson. I am a member of Local 1999 USW. You probably heard about us in the news a few years back when Carrier was closing, and we had to take to the streets, and we managed to fight that off and save 1,400 jobs or so. And that's not just union members, that's also management too as well. So when we fight as a union, that affects everybody. We recently, as a union, came out in favor of the movement for Black Lives, and we're always for that. We believe that labor rights are human rights. So anything that's going to affect us labor-wise is going to affect everybody in the long run. So in order for us to come together, we have to be on the side of what's right.
Thanks for joining us, Daryl. Representative Sharon?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm Sharon Beasley Teague, State Representative, the senior member of the Georgia General Assembly for 28 years now. I am a machinist, International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. I served there for 30 years, and now I recruit the retiree section of that. So I'm very much interested in what your topic is today, because in my ministry is we work with teaching different people of different religions how we can all live on planet Earth together. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Heather.
Hey, my name is Heather Harflow. I am an author, speaker, sex trafficking survivor, a native of Gary, Indiana. I met Keisha at a human trafficking symposium in 2017, where I was on a panel discussion there. Currently, I live in Indy and work with ITVAP, Indiana's Trafficking Victims Assistance Program, as a survivor consultant, also Ascent 121. And I use spoken word and poetry as a tool teaching survivors how to process trauma.
Yes, very much needed. I love the work that everybody is doing. I think that as we come together in this conversation, that we add some very important pieces to this very large puzzle. As we know that, you know, what happened with George Floyd, it was not an isolated incident. We know that there have been other things that have happened in you know, the recent years and through history, some of the history of this country. One thing, and I mentioned it, you know, in our communication the other day, is that, you know, one day as I was just scrolling on my Facebook page, I happened to see an assembly of the United Nations. And when I was just listening, I do listen to them. Sometimes I'll listen to the C-SPANs, the different governmental assemblies that happen. On this particular one, it was the United Nations, and they were meeting, and every leader of every country, or every representative of every country that was meeting that day, they said his name. And, you know, even though there were different languages, there was different, languages represented, different dialects, but each one of these representatives, they talked about the issue that was happening in America. They spoke his name, and it was really something that, you know, they were wanting to bring attention to on a global scale. And I just really thought that was important to mention, because when something that happens in our country makes a global scene like that, and it makes it all the way to the United Nations, I think that's something that, you know, we need to be speaking about. You know, as on a personal note, you know, I do really sincerely believe that, you know, as a Christian, you know, me, myself, I believe that, you know, as a Christian, we don't just stand up for one group of people. We don't just stand up for ourselves. We stand up for everybody. This is an everybody type of issue. And so I think that, you know, just as the world has come together, just as, you know, we have, you know, Latino people that are saying Black Lives Matter. We have, you know, white people that are saying Black Lives Matter. We have, you know, there are so many different nationalities that are represented, that are behind this movement. You know, I do want to say that it is important that everybody, you know, as we're doing today, come together and begin to talk. So our two of our issues that I do want to talk about first, I just kind of want to put them out there, and then whoever, you know, is first on that, you know, let's just come forth and begin the conversation. You know, we want to go ahead and just jump right in. So the first one is the psychological effects of, you know, oppression. You know, what does that look like? What are some of the results? And, you know, can we shine the light on some of the reasons why we're seeing the responses to the different, you know, things that have happened in the news, with the police brutality, with the, you know, the different things that have happened? You know, I just want to, let's focus on that for a moment, and just, you know, some of the psychological ramifications of what generational oppression looks like on people of color, on anyone, you know, but anyone that wants to kind of jump in there.
Well, I'll jump in if nobody's going to go. Okay, so is everybody hearing me okay? I'm sorry, I'm using an earpiece. Okay, so I'm just going to add this real quick before I back up to the generational part. Seeing these videos to me now, it is very psychologically triggering. I can no longer watch these videos. I've been seeing this since maybe 2014 and over and over and over again. And I think it was to the point that it seemed like nothing was being done about it. So now I've still not seen the George Floyd video. So a lot of people have told me about it. A lot of people have told me how horrible it was, but I myself, I can no longer look at these videos. I have a visceral reaction to them. So as far as the effects that it has generationally, well, we know those effects. We know that Black people in America have been the beast of burden for this country from the beginning, whether it be from plowing plantations to the civil rights movement, which advanced everybody. That's Latinos, that's Asians, that's LGBTQ people. It was the hoses and the dogs on Black Americans that pushed forward everybody's human rights here in America. So generationally, we know we've been redlined, which kept us from accumulating wealth, right? So I think for every $100,000 in wealth that a white family has, a Black family has $100 or $1,000. So generationally, right there's an impact, because we know that the schools in our country go by the property taxes. So if you don't have property and you don't have property value, or if you do own property and the values are low, then you're going to have lower taxes. Your schools are going to be underfunded. That goes to education. Education goes to where you work, and it's just cyclical, right? So generationally, we need to find somewhere to break that cycle right there.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of.
Okay, okay.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, this is Representative Beasley Teague. I just want to say that at this point in time in my life, since I came through SCLC out of Indianapolis, Indiana, I'm glad that everybody can see what I've been seeing for the 60-something years I've been on planet Earth. So now that we all have the same understanding, I think that we can successfully do something to change things. Because as I went through in different places, even in the political arena, people didn't see it like I saw it. And a lot of times they would say things like, well, you're just racist. But the real deal is I had to live through Indianapolis, Gary, and Terre Haute, Indiana, where they started the Ku Klux Klan there. And no matter where I go, there are Supreme Court justices and whatnot that understand. Because they went through Gary, they went through Terre Haute, Indiana, and they know. So they understood my leaving Indiana and being prepared for what I do here in Georgia. Saying that, I just know that we are having a lot of meetings where we listen to the young people, like you all are, and coming up with solutions like that. Because as one young man said, y'all have all those, you older people have all those old ways of doing things, nonviolence and stuff like that. But if you're Christians, if you're Muslims, even if you're Jews, it's nonviolent ways of doing things. That's the only thing that will succeed. And as I look at what's happening even here in Atlanta with these protests and things, because we have one going on right now in Atlanta with another organization, it's got to be peaceful or the message will get distorted. But you're not in control of who comes into your rallies and whatnot. And that's something that I want young people to be able to identify themselves so that people know that those that are goodwill people towards everyone are not instituting the violence that's going on in various places. And I've seen it done, so I know for sure. I worked with Reverend Jose Williams, used to work with Dr. King, so I know what disruptors are. So, but at least now you're looking for the troublemakers and whatnot. But with the epidemic going on, y'all, it's a little difficult even for the babies. I hope y'all getting your health reports. But yes, even for the babies, you have to keep them protected. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Janae. I want to actually, I've been thinking about your question. That's why I didn't dive in, because not knowing what you were going to ask, I was like, oh, what do I think about this? But I do want to talk about oppression and what happens in that process. I think that a outcome of that we've seen transpire, and that now we're seeing change because enough generations have happened to be distanced from that to see it through a different lens, is that often whoever is your oppressor, you spend the bulk of your time trying to appease them, trying to get their favor, trying to get their approval. And so when much of what we have done has been to show them that we are of higher value than they have deemed us, so that they can respect us, because that's, that respect is about value. And so what I think that has helped this change in perspective is that the later generations are not as burdened or held down by that former desire of any oppressed people to appease and show that your value to your oppressor. So they see the absurdity of it all, because they have a different lens of it. So I think that's why you're at a point that you can see folks having a different reaction to it, because it really doesn't make sense. Why is it so important for you, upon freedom from your oppressor, to fight so hard to have them feel okay about you? And so I'm glad that we finally have gotten to a point to have that awakening. And I think that's an awakening. And if you think that there's some debate about this, do you all remember Patty Hearst, and when she was kidnapped, and how it got to a point where she would do anything for them just to make sure that they felt that she was okay. So that's a human psychological situation that, if you know about those things, you can take advantage of. And so it's nice to see what this other group, who's distanced enough from that they are coming up with different ways to look at the situation. So
yeah, that was good. I think, Daryl, you were saying something?
No, I said Stockholm syndrome is what she was referring to.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Miss Heather, were you saying something as well?
Just listening and taking it all in, honestly. I mean, dehumanization and oppression is rooted in power and control, fear, shame, guilt. Anytime you take away someone's ability to choose for themselves, you're creating slavery. And community resilience is powerful in helping people recognize that their voice matters. So all of us coming together, and plus, I don't know what this new generation is called. My youngest is 18, and she said, we're Generation Z. I said, Generation Z ain't playing, because they're going to let their voice be heard. They are not our generation, and they are not the other generations. They're a whole new breed, and they're going to stand up for what's right and what's wrong, and they're not seeing the gray areas in between. They're calling it what it is, and to be able to even speak to my daughter's generation with everything that's happening has been such a powerful change within our own family. I'm loving it. I'm loving the change, because systems were created by people, and it's the people that's going to change those systems.
Yeah, that's a great segue into. So we see the oppression, generational impact that it has. Psychologically, it makes you almost run to certain behaviors every time there is even, like a scent of oppression. So I do kind of want to talk about maybe some solutions that we have or thought of, or anything that we have in identifying these systems of how to shut it down. And the reason I say that, I've heard a lot of talk about equity and equality, equity, but I'm of the mind to really just dismantle the whole system that keeps people marginalized in their thinking, in their wallets, in their, learning capacity, mentally. And so that's really, kind of like, the focus of Well Life is to make sure that the systems that keep that certain type of mind frame, to where, you're less than, and, I'm bigger or I'm better, because, classism even is in there. And so that's something that I wanted to bring out, dismantling that system.
I'd like to speak to that for just a moment, if I may.
Sure.
I've been listening to this. New York Times Magazine has a new 1619. It's called Highly Recommend. It's a kind of expository about the history of slavery, and it draws parallels from the very first slave boat that ever came to how that is still affecting people today. And it goes into art and culture, and it specifically spoke about the economic system of slavery. And I learned and listened to it about how, although England had abolished slavery long before the United States had, they were also able to, and all of the world was able to profit globally off of the slave trade because of borrowing against workers, and like a whole system of lending that was created. So there was like ultimately a stock market as we see it now, and the wealth of America was created on the back of slaves. And in some ways, if you take that as like a kind of the general what's the word I'm looking for? The formula for capitalism, which is a system that's based on exploitation. Capitalism, the entire thing is exploitation. You have a factory where the workers there have to create a value greater than what they are paid. Otherwise, it doesn't work at all, right? So if you're making a car that costs, or even a machine part that is a percentage of a car that costs X amount, they have to be able to make Y, Z off of it. So you never get the value of what your actual labor is worth. And if you take that, across the board, that's why the system of capitalism, and, we can talk about, of course, racial disparities, but it wouldn't be such a successful system if they weren't able to turn poor white people against Black people as well. And that was an early divide and conquer strategy that is still very successful to this day for people. And, I think, when we talk about dismantling, when we talk about, how to move forward, we have to address the big elephant in the room, and that's that our entire economic system is completely based on exploitation. I don't know, how we can get away from that personally. I'm very open to ideas, I'd like to think that moving as far away from the Republican Party as we can is at least a good first step, because they don't even necessarily seem to see the problem, much less be able to start to address the issues that it's causing. But also, we would be foolish to think that the Democrats are actually, showing that they have our best interests in mind. They kind of pay some lip service to more progressive causes, and then, like policy-wise, and of course, I don't even want to get into the kente cloth, and that whole thing was just such an embarrassment to me. But anyway, so I have more problems than solutions probably than I'm bringing up. But I will say that, again, as a realtor, I've really witnessed, and I'm working and actually just bought a house myself in areas that 5 out of 10 houses in the areas have been blighted. And, I grew up in this area as well. My neighbors, the Kings, came up from Jim Crow South to get good blue collar jobs in factories in Indiana. And although, Sam was a proud person who took good care of his home, he couldn't do it through the systems that other people had in place because the neighborhood was redlined. So, you need a new roof that in today's cost would be $10,000. What do we do about that when I can't get a bank to pay for it? I don't know. I make good money, and if I had to put a new roof on right now, I'm calling my bank immediately to get money for it. So, having grown up and seen that, and now, seeing a world where people kind of, use that system of exploitation to now force the peoples out of the neighborhood. So since we see high values is, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword for me too, because I'm, in some ways I am complicit in the gentrification, in that if a client wants a house, I can tell them, hey, this is an area that's growing in 17% annually right now. That's better than where you can put your money anywhere else. It's a great place to buy.
Good.
So yeah, I guess I was thinking back to that as it's coming out of my mouth, and the complicity and the privilege of complicity and complacency that I'm lucky enough to have, and kind of reflecting back to that New York Times series where they spoke in the first episode about Thomas Jefferson and his language in the original Declaration of Independence before it was demanded that it was changed, where it did include language about the injustice of slavery and how it needed to be addressed in there. But since the states wouldn't sign on, they took that language out.
So I think, and as a believer, I believe that our Creator created that overall system. But in the fall, what happened is that man decided to become his own mini God. And so he had to mimic the overall God, right? So he creates these similar systems so that try to mimic the main system to get the efficiency that systems provide out of it, right? So the interesting thing that I find about man-made systems is that what really fuels them is the people's agreement with them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if I decide I no longer agree with the way that this system operates, it will fall, because it needs the unity, or it needs the agreement of the people that are going to put themselves under it to be effective. So I think that what this awakening has shown is that people understand that that there are abilities beyond the current system that we're in. This is the first time we've ever really considered on a broader scale how to make those changes systemically. I've always quote unquote preached that it's important to learn the systems under which you live so that you can operate under them effectively. And in order to oppress anybody, you have to keep them ignorant of that. So part of the problem for African Americans or Black folks in the United States has been that to keep us oppressed, you had to keep us ignorant. Ignorant and stupid are two different things. Stupid is when you know what to do and you choose not to. That's stupid. Ignorant is when you have no idea. So keeping us ignorant was able to keep us oppressed. But what happened is when we were free, no one gave us all the intel, right? And so we did what we thought we're supposed to do, and we're confronted with all kinds of outcomes that we weren't expecting, and suffered that. So I think that now that we're becoming more woke, for lack of a better term, and understanding that the complexities of those systems, that they exist, that we need to understand them better. And once we understand them, they have to yield to us, because the main system was created not to be a respecter of people, but a respecter of people who understood how it operated. So for believers, you have that instruction manual called the Bible that shows you how the overall system works, right? But the rest of us, for the other systems that mimic that, we have to kind of on-the-job training, as you say, so that we can then learn how to manipulate them. Because if it was about systems being a respecter of persons, you wouldn't have people who have overcome them and been able to do better than others in them. So that's what I say about when people ask about how to change the system. Are we going to upend the entire system and create a new system? That's to be seen, because it's so complex, is my concern. You're always learning more things, like you're learning all the myriad connections that there are to it. And it's a little overwhelming, but I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't address it.
I want to jump in really quickly too, and just kind of, this first time I'm making a comment, just been sitting back listening and taking notes and just kind of agreeing with most of what I've been hearing. I think the major first step, and it kind of echo what has already been said, is we need a good dose of education. A lot of us, like my father would often say, we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times we are being manipulated into an agenda and or being indoctrinated with certain things that, quite frankly, just are not the truth. Like someone said earlier, this generation, I'm going to say it less eloquently as it has been said, but this generation just doesn't care. They're just going to do what they feel like they need to do and get the results they feel like they need to get, which in some ways needs to be corralled, but by and large, they just don't care. The whole term woke came to bear in the 1960s. And so that's not a new term, but I think people are really beginning to take the bull by the horns, if you will, because of our access to social media, the internet, all sorts of things. We are really becoming a global generation where we can connect with people from all different walks of life and all over the countries and all over the world. And we are exposed to different ideas, different thoughts, different perspectives. And so I think education is what is going to really be our first big major step. We need to be educated on how systems work, what is actually true versus what we were told because of an agenda that was trying to be forced upon us, and a narrative that was trying to be forced upon us. And I'll just say this as an example of what I mean. And I know it's kind of related, but there's, an agenda or a narrative that says, Christianity is the white man's religion. And because a lot of us are ignorant, we don't know, we just go with it because it feels good. It feels right because those are our oppressors and those are colonizers. And it's just a lot of ignorance and a lot of miseducation that I think further perpetuates our division, not only as Black people in America, but as Americans. Black people only make up 13% of the population in this country. So it's not like, we can just do everything that we feel like needs to be done in and of ourselves. We've got to learn how to bridge that gap and allow everybody to be on the same page as far as what is true and factual information that we can come together on.
That's good. So one person that I did not introduce today is now going to just be, input into the conversation. And this is the lady that is keeping me together. Her name is Marsha. And so she's going to kind of be like a moderator, but she does have some input on our conversation today.
Okay, I've been sitting back and I'm listening to everybody, and it's stuff that we all know that we probably discuss with each other, with other people that are thinking about this. So one of the things that you guys mentioned was, how do we change the system? We started talking about capitalism. If you research how that came about, it wouldn't have come about because people had their own jobs. So entrepreneurship, people have ideas. Entrepreneurship is something that would take down capitalism. We're talking about the gap between the younger generation just doing what they want to do or doing what they think is best, and the older generation saying, let's be peaceful, there's nonviolent. I do have to say, I'm nonviolent, but it takes everybody's voice. The movement, even before there was violence there, so it's not just, I don't have to do the violence, somebody's gonna do it, but it takes everybody's voice. So we can't silence a group of voices because they all need to be heard. The other thing I'm listening to, the younger, and I'm an older generation person, but the younger generation, it's like they're miseducated because our schools don't teach us how to think, they teach us what to think. So we just go through our life applying 1 + 1 = 2, and sometimes it might not equal 2 in the exact same way. So it's like there's a way that equals 2, and we're just saying this is how it is. So people are understanding the issue coming from their situation specifically. So I always say Jesus Christ is the way. He's one way, but a lot of people are coming from different directions. So I can't give them the same GPS that I'm coming from because they're coming from the southeast side. They're not going to get to the same location. So part of it is the miseducation. We need to educate them, but they have Google. There is so much misinformation on Google that they actually think they're doing right. They're doing something. So what they're seeing is, I don't know why I'm speaking for the young people because I'm not young, but what they're saying is this has been going on too long. What you're doing didn't work. It was peaceful. Now I'm going to be violent. But we also have to think about it's new to them. So the same way it was in our generation, it was like, oh, we can't do this. Let's do this. It's new to them. So they are reacting as if this is a brand new thing. It's been going on over 400 years. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. They have a whole they have access to information, but a lot of it is misinformation. They don't have an understanding, like they weren't created to think. They weren't made to think as children. So, well, let me take it back. They weren't taught how to think through and process what's going on and go back and research to make sure they're thinking along the right lines. We've just been giving them information, and what they're doing, they're going like, well, this information doesn't match up. I'm going to say, even for the church, you say God is this and God is that, and he'll supply this and he'll supply that. So you have a lot of different issues because of the different understanding of what's going on. Everybody sees it, but having it out there is just the knowledge. It's not an understanding of it. So they're reacting on the knowledge, not understanding the systemic things that have to be uprooted and taken away. So it's new to them. They're going to react like that. It's like a baby falling. They're going to cry. So they're out crying right now. And we, at an older generation, we need to actually hear that cry as if it's a brand new cry, a brand new baby that's seeing stuff, because they're actually fighting for us too. So all the voices need to be heard. We don't have to be all the voices, but it's going to take all the voices to be heard. But getting us back to entrepreneurship, that's something you always think. We got to get back to educating, and we don't have, Dr. Martin Luther King, we don't have a voice. We have a whole bunch of, it's like the movement is schizophrenic, to be honest with you. We have a lot of voices saying this, so they're actually trying to do what they think is best. But back in the day, we had a voice, and we followed a voice, and we came together in unity. We actually had community, came together, and we followed a voice. There are so many different voices because there is not one person that is taking this movement on for the people as a total.
You know what? I want to just say something on that. A voice. I'm also of the mind that we, as a unit, have to be the voice. Just like, there are many, different nationalities that's even on this live today. What's getting the people's attention worldwide is that, Latino people are joining up with African American. White people are on the scene with African American. We've got London. We've got all of the world is coming together to say this can no longer happen. This is not okay. You've known it's not okay. You know it's not been okay. But now we're going to do something, and we're going to stop. You know what I'm saying? There's I believe that the voice, it needs to be everybody that says no to the tyranny, no to the exploitation. But I do agree.
I have a fear about all this, and I'm going to, again, bring problems and not solutions. Sorry again for it, but it feels like there's something parallel happening to this movement right now, which is kind of a real culture war. And when I really look, outside of the bubble of my own social media and my own news sources, which are, left-leaning, and I try to vet them too. But, when it's a little dumb, but I was on a Facebook page recently that was about fans of Melania Trump. And, when you really see how other people are looking at the world right now, people who think that racism isn't a thing, or, I get in fights all the time with people on social media, usually fruitlessly, but trying to call people in instead of calling people out for their, what I think is often unconscious tendencies toward white supremacy. And I say unconscious because I think that, people generally think that they're good people. I'm less afraid of the racists that are avowed white supremacists, and I'm more afraid of the ones who, the people who think that they're good people and, vote all the right way and all of that kind of stuff, because they're the ones who aren't coming over, who aren't really seeing the reality, who aren't doing the homework to learn about the systems of oppression. And I guess it's very easy for them in this world to find information that supports their worldview. And I guess that's kind of coming back into that thing about education, about reality. I mean, Howard Zinn wrote A People's History of America like 50 years ago or something like that, that tells the true story of history, which includes the oppression not just of people of color, but of Indian people as well, the Native Americans who, without whom also their lands were taken to make cotton fields and things. So, it's like, that's not the history that we're taught in school. That's not the history that, so when we talk about what's truth, like there's a lot of force working against the truth coming out right now in order for people to, we can have different beliefs. I'm a Buddhist. A lot of people on here are Christians, I know, and we can find common ground and we can talk about, esoterica things and what our differences are, but that's not going to change the fact that land was taken. That's a fact, like slavery was a fact. Jim Crow was a fact, we can get into the gray areas too and discuss those, but if you have nearly half the population who are not seeing these things as facts, not understanding these things as facts, and when they think of the founding fathers, they're thinking about the guys that let them have guns and stuff. They're not thinking of them as all slaveholders. It's I just don't know. Again, problems, no solutions. Sorry, but I think that fighting in this culture war, finding out ways to call people in instead of calling people out, and finding ways that the truth of reality of what has happened, not the truth as written by the victors, how to continue that to come out.
That's good.
I want to say something too. I appreciate everything that you just said, Dylan. And maybe you can only speak to a faction of this as because of your skin color. But I was recently on the Black Lives Matter website, and I know on Keisha, on the flyer you had mentioned the organization versus the principle. And personally, there were some things that I read on the website that I personally don't agree with. But the principle of fighting for social injustice, those sorts of things, I agree with as a believer. And I think that what Dylan said was so key when he said, I'm less afraid of those who are out front, avowed, yes, I'm a racist, I'm this, that, and the other, versus the people who think, oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm not a racist. Oh, what do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying. We live in a post-racial society. It's those people who are more dangerous because of their ignorance and their apathy. And so as soon as you say something to them or you try to educate them, it's dismissed, you're dismissed, oh, you're one of those people, et cetera, and et cetera. And on our end, as Black Americans, as soon as you say something that may not be complimentary or perceived as complimentary to the Black Lives Matter movement, oh, you're this, you're a sellout, or you're that. And so what I have found is that when you are a middle of the road, balanced, mature, truth-seeking individual, like you said, irrespective of where you fall ideologically, the fact is lives were taken, land was taken by Native Americans, et cetera, and et cetera. There's just a lot of ignorance. People just simply don't know. And so they go to an agenda, they subscribe to this media outlet, to that media outlet, and that's the only place that they get their information from. We become siloed, and we become segregated and isolated, although we live across the street from one another, although we're social media friends, blah, 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 blah. I want to ask the question, well, how do we begin to bridge that gap? Because a lot of people simply are just well-intentioned, but ignorant.
I would say one thing that I've learned to some degree, I'm sorry if
No, you're fine, you're fine.
I think honestly, a lot of the onus is on on white people, and I'm just going to put it out there that, you know, you said you guys are, African Americans are 13%. Of them listening to me and hearing me, in the same way that, you know, people don't get it. I'll probably get better medical treatment, et cetera, et cetera. You know, so I think that it's up to white people to some degree to use their privilege in order to elevate the voices of the oppressed and of people of color.
Yeah, and I'll add that we as black people in America, we cannot stop talking and reaching out to white people. You know, I have coworkers, being in a union, we have people who voted for Trump, people who voted for Clinton, people who voted for Jill Stein, people for all ilks. But when it comes to our contract, we all come together as one, and we're fighting for that cause. So I can't remember who said it, but I don't think we necessarily need a singular voice. What we need is a singular purpose. Mm-hmm. We need to come together for a singular purpose, right? Like I said, I talk to people every day. These are Trump voters, avowed Trump voters. They will tell me, well, all police aren't bad. I'm saying, I'm not telling you that all police are bad. What I always try to start from is a place of common ground. We both agree that our political system is in a bad spot, and that they don't represent you, or if you're on the right, they don't represent you. If you're on the left, they don't represent you. If you're in the center, they represent themselves for the most part. And this is me at the upper levels of government. So this is not me taking it. The lower levels of government are very much more responsive to the people. But when you get into Congress and in the Senate and president, there's not much response. You can have 92% of the people saying that they want background checks, and we don't get them, right? So we start there. I say, so we both know that this is corrupt. This is not supposed to happen like this. I said, okay, it's not the people. These people go into politics for the most part with good intentions, right? But it's the system that corrupts them, because the system is corrupt. So what's going to come out at the end is a corrupt product. And I explained to them, because I work in a factory. We have a system at this factory. It's going to be made on this end, and we're going to push it out on that end. It doesn't matter if I'm here. It doesn't matter if somebody else is here. No matter who you bring in this building, that system is going to do the same thing and create the same outcome. So it doesn't have to be a bunch of bad cops. It doesn't have to be a bunch of bad police officers. It's the system that manufactures these outcomes. The systems, when you sit in there and you tell them, go into this community, this is where the drugs are, this is where you need to be scared. When you're told this over and over, you can tell the most beautiful person in the world that they're ugly enough, and they'll believe it. So that's why I tell them, it doesn't matter if it's a black cop or white cop, it's the system. The system that's put in place tells them that this is what you're supposed to go after. I told them all the time. They say, well, you know, they'll tell me, well, that's where the drugs and the crime is. I'm like, if you want drugs, go to any college campus on the weekend. You can find all the drugs you want. You can find all the drugs you want on any college campus on the weekend. Do they do that? No, they don't. Right? Because the system tells them this is where you need to go. These are the people that need to be whipped into shape. So understanding the system and changing the system is two different things. We do need to understand these systems. What we need to do is, at some point, someone else said that we are participating. We have to opt out. We have to say, no, I no longer consent to this system. Right. Because without the people, these systems can no longer go forward.
So what does that look like? How do you not consent? I mean, I guess one small thing I was thinking about is like, I can call the cops less on, even somebody breaks into my car or something like that. Sure, I got to file a police report, but I don't have to give a description of who I saw do it, something like that. But that's a small thing. But I mean, how do you really opt out of the system?
So what we have going on now, like with defund the police, people think that that's saying get rid of police. A lot of people think that means we don't want police. Nobody's saying that. That's foolishness. Well, there is a few people that do actually want to abolish the police. That's not what defund the police means, right? So what it means is we don't need 40, 50, 60% of our city's budgets going towards policing. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So let's treat these problems differently. When someone's having a mental health crisis, let's call out somebody who's a mental health expert. We opt out of the system that says we're going to send a cop to deal with this person who's having a psychological break, right? And the way you do that, no change ever comes from the top down. Change always happens from the bottom up. So participate in your local government, state, county, municipal. These are the things where you're going to see true change. And from there, that's what I mean by opt out of the system. I don't mean don't vote. I don't mean walk away from it. I mean, we do this in a different way. We say, no, if you're not going to give us the results that we desire, then we're going to go a different way. You're going to be out of the system.
Daryl, you also have to realize there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen too. I mean, part of the thing that's made the system successful is the programming that has been done to all of us so that we are viable parts within it, meaning we help it to sustain itself. So it's not a matter of just getting police departments to have for them to be that much of the state budget or the local budget, but also to get people to stop calling them every time some little thing happens. I mean, I did a article on this, and I said, why, if the police are there for you to call when there's an actual emergency and you call them because, so-and-so is screaming down the street, you still have to pay these people to go to this house where this person is screaming down the street, right? So the thing is this a phone call is this a situation that needs a phone call to the police? And so these are things that we're going to also have to change on our end so that we aren't feeding the very system that is at the extent that it is now, that it requires the funding that it requires.
Can I just say amen right now? Just amen to it all. Amen.
Can I just say one quick rebuttal there? And I agree with everything you just said. And someone was talking about the system of capitalism. Our system teaches us to take care of self first. We've lost that sense of community. If we had that sense of community that we once had, we wouldn't call the police on those. When I was a kid growing up in Blackburn Terrace, nobody was calling the police. They were going to take care of you themselves and then send you home. And then my grandmother was going to take care of you too, right? We didn't have that issue. Of I'm calling the police. So I think the fracturing of communities, this having everybody chasing every dollar. My grandfather raised 3 sons after my grandmother died, raised 3 sons by himself. And I was always scared because I grew up in this time. I was always scared to ask my dad what he did for a living. And one day I finally came up and I asked him, I was like, what did he do for a living? He was like, he was a supervisor at a warehouse. And it blew my mind. He owned a Cadillac. He owned a house. He sent 3 boys to Catholic schools, and he was just a supervisor at a warehouse. And you could not get by on that today. So that's another thing. The family dynamics have changed. We're all chasing our tails, trying to make sure that we keep up with the Joneses or that we were able to afford things. The community structure has completely fallen apart. The people talk about the family structures, the community structure has fallen apart. So if we could rebuild community, that would do a lot to as far as reprogramming. So I wanted to throw that in there. It has a lot
to do with value. I mean, if I don't feel valuable, then I'm going to do things to make me feel valuable, like try to be like the Joneses. You know, I think that that is an offshoot. You were talking about oppression earlier. That is an offshoot of it. The things that people spend their money on are so unnecessary. You're only making somebody rich who doesn't, you know, for something that they've convinced you that you need so that you can feel important, feel valuable, feel significant. So I think that that's another deprogramming that has to happen, so that I don't need to have those things to feel as worthy or as valuable as you. Like, I grew up in the era where, you know, you weren't anybody unless you were driving a BMW, right? So everybody's trying to have a BMW. Why? Because now I'm in debt. So am I somebody because I can barely afford food? You know? So, I mean, that's why I say how complex the system is. Do any of you guys plant, you know, work with agriculture? The root system is so complex. You can't just run one root out because you messed the whole thing up. You know, I just got into planting. I have some basil plants downstairs, and I brought them some dirt in a bigger pot. I was all happy. But then when I saw that the roots were all like this, and I'm going to risk killing the whole thing by trying to make the situation better, I think it's the same thing. We have to understand the complexities of it all so that you can realize that I've got to get rid of that component as well as the other stuff that we're talking about implementing. Because if I change that, everything connected to it's going to change. And we're going to have so much upheaval that it'll become chaotic. You know, so those are the things that we have to keep in mind too. And that somebody was talking about the Gen Zs today. That's the stuff they don't get, is how interconnected it all is. The work that I get to do downstate has opened my eyes to how complex the situation is, but also how readily accessible the information is, so that you can benefit from the system as opposed to suffering from it because you didn't know how it operated. I mean, it's just like you work with the unions, understanding how the assembly line works. If you bring in somebody who doesn't know how the assembly line works, they can mess up your whole day. Do you know what I mean? So I think that those are the things that we have to make sure that we keep in mind, because we could end up doing more damage than doing more systems.
So if I can jump in real quick.
Yes.
Say, Daryl, I agree with you. It's about one purpose. Everybody coming for one purpose. If you look at Black Lives Matter movement versus the organization, it's so convoluted. And that's why it's not working. There's not really one purpose that they're coming for. And with the webs, I think it was Janae that was talking about the roots that are all tangled up if you move one thing. When I'm talking about all the voices need to be heard, it's people that are connected to every one of those roots. They need to come to the table. We need to find out who they are and bring us all to one table to talk. That's how we get everybody on focused on one purpose, because if we fulfill everything that the roots are going down to, if we trace those roots, like you were saying in the plants, we trace them back and then say, okay, this is where it's broken here. Let's fix it here. And each person does that. That's how we are able to create change. But it's like people are just getting, this is what I want, this is what I want, and when it affects me, this is how I want it. So the movement versus the organization is a big, big, big issue. If you look into the movement, you'll see, I always say this, follow the money. Follow the money. And that's how you're gonna see the motive of what's behind the movement, what's behind the organization, all of that. So we need to, actually, it takes individuals like us. Who is this? Who can we talk to here? And it takes like just this small group or a group of people getting the same different minded people to the table that are connected to all the roots you're talking about.
Something that Daryl said that really kind of sparked something in me when he said that his grandfather raised 3 boys by himself. If you look at the statistics of how fatherlessness impacts our culture, impacts our society, that to me is a root problem, is the decay of our families. And I know we have varied perspectives on this, but just my conviction as a pastor, my worldview comes from the scriptures, and it talks about the importance of fathers, how the fathers laid hands on their children, and even the law of the Old Testament. The scripture says that the law was instituted for the lawless. And a lot of the systems that we are referring to, changing, reforming, et cetera, and et cetera, if you look at it from its bare bones, it is to solve a problem that is there because we are not acting responsibly as individuals and or as families. And so you have people who are in charge of movements, agendas, legislation, et cetera, and they themselves, I'm about to make a big statement here, they themselves aren't whole individuals. So they have agendas, they have things that they want to get done because of their personal brokenness, i.e. the President of the United States. I'm sorry. And so we have people who are in power who or places of influence who aren't whole themselves.
Right.
And so we've got to be able to, I think Marsha just said it about, we have to begin to preach the message of individual responsibility, right? You know, I think Janae said it earlier, if I don't see myself as valuable, then I'm going to be searching for the next BMW that I need to get to make myself feel a particular way. And that spawns me into economic debt, which spawns me into doing this, which brings about that, which brings about, and it all starts with a personal sense of value, identity, and worth, which I think, and this is my opinion, I know I'm biased as a pastor, this is why I preach empowerment. This is why I preach identity, because we can institute all the laws we want, reform as many programs as we want, but it's not until we as individuals have a sense of, I think someone said it earlier, I'm a part of a greater community and I have a responsibility to add to the value of that community. And a part of that is demonstrating, not just preaching with my mouth, but demonstrating that with my actions, with my words, taking responsibility for those who are in my sphere of influence and strengthening them and helping them.
I was having a slight reaction when you were first talking about individualism, because I think individualism is also problematic in some ways. But when you brought it back to community, I was really kind of taken into a different way of thinking about it too. Whereas, and I think that's so important. You know, there's something about Asian cultures that I learned recently, that when someone steals and gets caught stealing, if no one knows who it was, they're in trouble, they don't actually feel shame about that until it is found out that their family will be brought into it, that their community will be. And I think that we often lean so far into this individual thing that we forget that the importance of the individual is as part of a community. And I wanted to kind of tie in as well what you were, what Daryl and Gina were saying. Sorry, I think I pronounced your name wrong. Because there was something that crossed my mind too, just about the kind of radical action of planting a garden in your community, and how, you know, something as simple as that can be a great act, making a space in your community to invite people to come and grow food together. Something just about the process of getting your hands in the dirt, going back to the basics in that way, and doing that with people who are close to you. It's nourishing and sustaining both to the body physical from the fruits that it yields, literally, and then also spiritually, just as and in a community sense. So I think, you know, when we're talking about actions that are taken, I feel like I can't overstate the importance and what I've gained from being parts of community gardens. And we have a great organization here in Indianapolis that my wife worked for a while until I stole her away to come be a ruthless capitalist with me. It's called, and now it's actually run by a wonderful Black woman named Victoria Chantal, who's the president of Growing Places Indy, and they're on the Tech High School campus. And they actually have volunteer programs. If you can't necessarily start a community garden where you are, you know, you could find an opportunity for people in your neighborhood to volunteer at their garden, and then they have a farm stand and stuff. So I just wanted to do a quick plug for Victoria and for Growing Places Indy, because they're doing work that I think kind of parallels some of what you're doing, Keisha, and that it's about the whole person, and they're starting with it right, you know, in the dirt right there. So
that's awesome. Thank you for doing that. And I do want to partner with other like-minded organizations. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to just give a quick shout out to Miss Keisha Swape from UK. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. I know there's a time difference. So yeah, you just jump right in, you know. Miss Heather, you were saying something a moment ago. Were you saying something? Go ahead and you can go ahead and give your input. I know you jumped in and jumped out real quick.
Oh no, I was just making my little agreement sounds like, amen. That's what I'm talking about, you know.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we didn't cut you off and you can, you know, go ahead and finish what you were saying.
I think the other thing we have to think about too is change. We're asking for change here, are we not? And as much as human beings love change, need change, they sure hate it when they have to go through it. So the first thing that we will say when you bring change to us is no. You know, so we have to remember that. And so not think that that no means that it's been cut off. It's just the first reaction, and we have to get through that barrier. So I think a lot of times what we're seeing, what I see on social media anyway, is that a person will say no because you're asking them to change, and then you attack them or you bully them. And I think that that works on none of us. So why we think it'll work on other people when we do it, it blows my mind. So I'm thinking that, but it's a matter of understanding human nature. And we've even lost that because you even learn that in community, right? And so if you're in an individualistic society, I'm never going to really understand how other people work because I'm going to see everything through the lens of how I work as opposed to being taught how people interact. So I think, as I keep talking about it, I keep just showing how complex it is. It's not complicated, it's just complex. And we try to make it so simple. And so understanding that complexity and training ourselves to work within that complexity is just another critical component of this. Just because it's complex, I do not think it's impossible. I just think it shows how aware we need to be to actually affect a positive and effective change.
I was going to say that we have to understand that it's been going on forever. So it's not going to be a quick change. Mm-hmm. Also, that we're dealing with a sin issue, not a skin issue. Mm-hmm. So it's about power and authority. And so when people hear like somebody was talking about good people, they don't understand privilege and all that. And so they're not for what we're saying. So it's not really that they're doing bad. Like I'm going to say, I've heard people being angry because of somebody has white privilege. I mean, they didn't do anything to get it. You know what I mean? So like the way you're saying, the way we come at them also makes a difference. Also, we won't change, right? Like you were saying. But people don't understand what change is. I think Dr. BT3 was talking about the education. Behavior modification is not change. And so a lot of people were okay when they modified their behavior in public. You know, or they modified, okay, so we're going to do this, we're going to let you in here, but their heart's still the same.
Right.
So if we're talking about real change, it's going to take time. And somebody was talking about, everybody was talking about planning. I think even doing little things like that with our youth that are coming up, it will help them understand it takes time. We used to say the generation after us or after me was a microwave generation. This is like laser speed generation now. I don't know what's going on. But we need to involve them in things and open their minds up to different things than what they're seeing on an everyday basis. So we don't want just behavior modification because I'm going to be just real. That's what happened in King's days. They modified their behavior enough for us to become complacent again. So there was a lot of change that happened, but the heart never changed. Mm-hmm. So we have to really dig our feet in and stand tall on, we want change, not behavior modification.
We want transformation.
Yes,
there you go.
That's it.
Yeah. I really think that we all have some great components. I've heard some great solutions. I know that, we've got about 15 minutes of our time together here today. We've said a lot of great things. I've heard, just so much on, the oppression, the psychological effects, the Black Lives Movement versus Black Lives Principle. There's so many different things. what are, if I could just pose this question to everyone, what are some real solutions where we can come together, even if it's just this group, and then we expand out? What are some real solutions, that are, we can actually actualize these, some steps that we can take so that we can begin to change things, for everybody. I mean, we all have a piece. Nobody has like the whole piece, the whole pie, but we all have a piece of it. And I think collectively as a unit, we have to start somewhere, to get everybody on the right track. What are some real, steps that we could take?
This is truly an ignorance issue, which is what I really believe it is. It's because there's so much we don't know. I mean, this was great for me, just having Dylan's perspective on capitalism. I never saw it that way. And that was awesome, because that feeds into a lot of things that I'm dealing with in the populations that I work with, so that I can give them that message and that understanding. So I think that having the kind of conversations that we were having today with people who don't necessarily think that way, you're talking about the buy-in, Marsha, and that's really about, or the heart change, and that's really about paradigm shift. It's all about how you see things. And if you want change to really be effective, you have to help me see it through a different lens, which is not difficult. And the only way that I can do that is through this thing, right? Is having you hear it differently, and the hearing gets into the brain, and then you start going, oh, I never looked at that side of the elephant before. I always equate it to a big elephant, and we're each looking at our side of the elephant. And if I can get you over to my side of the elephant to see how I see it, you get to see more of the elephant that you're currently seeing. And so I think that is the start. Any kind of overarching move, I will leave that to the rest of the panelists, because I don't know. All I know is that this probably started one person at a time, and I think that that's how it's going to end, because programming is only fortified with the mass processes that we use, but it actually starts person to person to person to person. And then you have the mass thing confirming that, so that it roots itself more into you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I'm loving this just because of what I've learned and how I'm going to utilize what I've gotten from this in the dialogues that I have with the folks. So I'm looking to help move beyond whatever is holding them back or holding them at a lower position than they would like to be. So.
I actually like that perspective of the elephant that you just described. I mean, that's really powerful. I mean, because a lot of times, when someone will pull you in and show you the other side, you have an opportunity at that moment to embrace it and see it from that perspective and honor it from their point of view. And a lot of times it does not happen that way. And I appreciate that. I know as a Christian, I truly believe that the Bible says perfect love casts out all fear, and that there is no fear in love. And I feel like when we can really embrace one another for where we truly are without judgment, and just love somebody at that place and give them their dignity and their humanity back. I mean, and the inclusion factor, I mean, I think it's just so important that, forums like this, I can't fix necessarily generations at this moment of the breakdown of the structure of my family, but I can be welcomed into a community that will love me, will embrace me, and will treat me fairly.
Yes. I love that. I love what you just said, Heather. That was so awesome. It is about community. It is, just bringing everybody in, I think, Daryl, you said it earlier about leveling the playing ground. We're all at ground zero, but everybody has to know that no person is better than the other. The community aspect is definitely what is going to bring us back, to the reality of things. So yeah, I have to totally agree, especially when you said, Heather, without judgment. Loving me where I am, because that's the biggest thing, and so, yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. Miss Keisha, did you have anything you would like to add at this time, ma'am?
Hi guys, hi everyone. Good afternoon in the US. It's now evening here in the UK. It's now 22 minutes past 8, so we're just a little bit ahead of you guys. Yeah, love what the lady just mentioned a minute ago, but we're gonna go back to, as what you were saying there, Keisha, go back to bringing it back to love. We have to really reinforce back that into our community, because what's happening in the world right now, I think quite a lot of it is lack of love, and people are just thinking that it's okay for them to do certain things when they're not thinking about anybody else but themselves. So it's all about bringing back everything back to the community, and in reinforcing, especially to the younger generations as well, children that are coming up now, the importance of love and accepting each other. And as you said about the judgment as well, just accepting people for who they are, where they are at that point in their life. And it's not about trying to change anyone, because that's not our job to do that. So going back again, really love what you said, Heather. You just nailed it to a T, and that's what I just wanted to just add to that at this point.
Awesome. So do we have any other solutions, any other thoughts at this time?
I'll say this. I once worked for a big online retailer. I won't tell you who. But the one thing I took away from that experience, the only positive thing I took away from that experience during their leadership training, they taught us to assume positive intent. Mm-hmm. And that always stuck with me. Assume positive intent. No matter if that person is saying something you don't agree with, assume positive intent. And to what Gina, I believe it is, said, I use a similar analogy, but I use boxing. I'm a fan of boxing. And in boxing, a lot of times when a fight ends, you have 3 judges. And those judges will have wildly different scorecards. And people are like, how could he have it here and he have it? They're sitting in 3 different sides of the ring. So where you saw that punch land, all I saw was the person's back. Where you saw, so everybody has a different perspective on it. And like you said, bringing that person around to see what it is and understand why it is that you've done that way, we make a lot of, we can build a lot of bridges that way. And also, I believe Marshall spoke about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is key. Entrepreneurship, and I'll say this too, shameless plug, unions, right? Unions help pull people out of poverty. Entrepreneurship help pull people out of poverty. We're in a capitalist system. America understands 2 things. That's money and might. Right? We don't want to go the road of violence. So if that's the case, then we have to deal with the money situation, right? And once you have the money, get their attention. That's why the riots got their attention. You started messing with people's money, people started making phone calls. Hey, we need to do something about this. So there's 2 things that America understands. And if you don't take anything else from me, remember this, it's money and might. I don't think we want to go that other way. So we have to find a way to deal with the money aspects. If you can unionize, unionize. If you can open your own business, open your own business. Keep that money circulating within your community. Quit being so willing to send it off to Amazon where it's going to go to Seattle and never to be seen again. So that, in closing, that's what I would like to say. We have to deal with the money aspect of it.
I would piggyback on just to say, and this will be kind of my last thing to say here, but definitely the money needs to be addressed. If you're going to go the route of entrepreneurship, pay your people well. That's kind of at the very bottom of it. What unions do is they give power to the workers, and that's the same thing. I think it was the Chobani yogurt guy, when he wanted to retire, he gave his whole factory to all of his workers. And I think that, when the workers are appreciated, when the people who work for me as an entrepreneur, a lot of people say, well, how much do you want to pay me for this job? And I say, no, you tell me what you're worth, and that's how much I'm going to pay you.
That's what's up. Right.
Because I believe you. If it's $100 for you to do it, or if it's $500 for you to do it, you let me know. And I think that's an important thing, is that we have to work within this system that we're in, but we don't have to be, we can be in it, but not of it,
Right.
And I think Stevie said, make sure when you say you're in it, but not of it, that you're not helping to make this earth a place sometimes called hell. So. I think we all just have to look out for ourselves.
I would, as far as solutions are concerned, I would just kind of expand on what I said earlier, and not from a selfish individualism perspective, but taking on personal responsibility. We all have individual spheres of influence. Keisha, you convened this, and I've probably met maybe one or two people on here in person. And the whole 6 degrees of separation thing, 6 people that I don't know that you don't. I mean, so it really starts with taking personal responsibility within your sphere of influence and speaking the truth, demonstrating what types of changes you want to see. People are smart. They'll listen to what you're saying, but they're going to look at your lifestyle. They're going to look at your behavior. They're going to look at your patterns, because our lifestyles preach the loudest message. But I just think, as far as solutions are concerned, we all have to take on a level of personal responsibility to say, I'm going to be the change that I want to see, and I'm going to preach that message both verbally and behaviorally to those who hear me and to those who watch what I do. And I think over time, those sorts of changes begin to take root in the hearts and in the minds of people that we're connected with.
So I think one of the questions was, what are the next steps? My mind goes to administration. So we have 8 people on this call, I think, on this meeting. We all have a part, like everybody was saying, to the change that we need. But what we also had to understand, and Daryl had said, that it's about one purpose, not just one voice. So we are dealing with all of these different issues coming from where we're coming from. So is there a way, and I'm saying this to Keisha Walker, is there a way that we can write or voice what we feel, what we believe should happen, actually write it down somewhere? So then if we're going to be a group that's going to be about change, then we come together again. And I may say something that Janae doesn't understand why I said it, or she may say something that I don't understand, but we get on the same level of understanding so we can actually be a voice of purpose. So we all don't want it to happen. We all want change, but why? Dr. BT3, this is a plug for you. He taught on the why. Why do we want it? What is it affecting in your life? What is it affecting in your community? What is it affecting in your family? All of these different things. So thank you, Daryl. Can everybody, I think I have everybody's email address, but I think we should all voice what we see as the problem, what we see as being a solution to the problem, who we see it is affecting, and then be able to come back and get a solid purpose, just a purpose of what we're going to do, and help each other understand if there is a misunderstanding or just lack of understanding. Because what is out there now is a lack of understanding of what's going on. So people are just like shooting at different places, hoping it fits, throwing stuff up against the wall and hoping it sticks to change. So I think as a group, if we're going to do this, we need to be focused with the one purpose. And that can only happen when we're actually truly understanding where we're coming from.
Thank you, everyone. I would appreciate if you guys are able to go ahead and get behind Well Life Society. We want you to be a part of what we're doing. Our intent is always to ignite social leadership. And that definition is basically this: to conspicuously and openly stand against the systems that marginalize people, and then to advocate, for bringing one community together, to stand against those systems. So that's what we're advocating for, is social leadership. We also have two other pillars, which is education, as well as cognitive coaching or mental wellness. So we just believe in well life on all aspects, but we definitely would love for everyone to be able to join us again and begin to implement some of these solutions in our community here I mean, and then who knows, you know, we could replicate them in other areas of the country, but it's time to do something, and community is the way. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that joined us today. We appreciate you, and you are dismissed. Have a great rest of your Saturday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.